Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Wampus cat stalks coastal North Carolina native family. I live on the edge of the North Carolina coast and have been in this beach town my whole life. You get a few miles west from the beach and you're immediately in the country. My mother's side has lived here as far back as memory serves, and my father is a Sioux whose mother moved him here as a child away from the reservation. Since I can remember, my mother's side of the family has had run-ins with the Wampus cat. Legends vary depending on where you are, but commonly around here it's said she was a Cherokee woman who snuck into the woods to listen in on a males-only meeting that included the chief and their medicine man, not sure if it's the correct term for this tribe. She wore the skin of a cougar as a disguise, but she was found out, and the medicine man cursed her to forever wear the cougar skin. She now stalks people, for what reason, I don't know. But it follows me. And my family. Always has. We've gotten so used to the Wampus cat, we just expect her, when we move to a new house, or the seasons are changing, or we find ourselves in a moment of emotional weakness. When my mother had a rough day being bullied in middle school, back in the 80s, she was crying and riding her bike home down a country dirt road. The sun is setting, but it's not dark out yet. Behind her she hears this shriek. I've heard it before, and it sounds like when an eagle screams, but with that gurgling gutturalness of a cougar's roar. So she turns around, and she sees a huge creature, dark matted fur, in a stance like a gorilla stands in when it walks on its knuckles, back legs crouched a bit, chest and head up and supported by the arms on the knuckles. She turns around and races on her bike all the way home. She told her mom what she saw, and she calmly says, "That's a Wampus cat. They've never hurt us, they just like to spook you." And that was that. So I grew up with a native father, superstitious as all hell, and practically jumping under the bed to hide when we heard the Wampus cat scream in the backyard some nights, while my mom and grandmother just kind of acknowledge, "Oh, it's the cat again." And I have gone my whole life with this as completely normal. Even when I got married, and my husband was out by the woods with me, we'd hear that scream, see the leaves on the forest floor kick up as it stalked us, never coming too close, and have to realize that to people who didn't grow up in my town, this was a terrifying experience. To me it's like when you occasionally see a cardinal in the trees. A bit different than the day-to-day, but nothing life-changing. My closest encounter was one night in high school. My friend and I, and her boyfriend, were sitting on the front porch enjoying the nighttime salt air and the lightning bugs. A huge, gorilla-sized, extremely hairy animal runs up to the front of the porch and screams like hell has opened up. Now I'm semi-used to the critter, but I don't want it 5 feet from me. We go to her bedroom, and for about an hour, hear it stalking back and forth under her window, about 10 feet down. Coastal towns have raised houses on stilts in case of hurricanes. Growling, spitting, screaming, rolling around in the foliage. Just being pesky and grumpy. Finally it wanders off, all is quiet, and we fall asleep. Every once in a while, I'll still hear it. It's just life here. This town is extremely haunted. I've grown up a few miles from the Fort Fisher battleground, and many historic and tragic places. I have too many unnatural encounters with all sorts of things to put in one post. But that's it. My experience with a not-so-talked-about creature that is just a part of life to me. Hope y'all learned something, and don't go out too late in coastal North Carolina if you're easily scared. WH.
Upright Panther in rural Illinois. My aunt saw a Black Panther man when she was a kid. Ever since I had experienced paranormal activity, I started polling people, asking if they've ever had anything paranormal happen to them. At dinner at my aunt and uncle's I asked them, and she said when she was maybe 7 or 8 years old, she was playing in a creek in the woods behind their house in the middle of rural Illinois. She heard a noise and looked up to see a tall, muscular Black Panther man looking at her as he just walked by. She said she was scared to death, but the creature was almost beautiful. She watched as he just walked away out of sight. He did not threaten or do anything other than look at her as he passed. At the time I had not heard many or if any of these animal-human sightings, so I thought it was interesting, and I believed her, but it was the first time I'd heard of a Catman. My uncle, who is very meat and potatoes logical, said he had not experienced anything paranormal, and he just smiled as my aunt told her story. They asked why I was interested, and I told them that I'd experienced some supernatural things, and now I make a point to ask people if they've experienced anything. My uncle quoted Carl Sagan and said, "Extraordinary claims need extraordinary proof." But my aunt was not embarrassed and stressed that she indeed saw it, and she'll never forget it. That must have been 10 years ago, and I now know these encounters are somewhat more common than I once thought. You have the Egyptians depicting Catman, Birdmen, Dogmen, etc. Stephen King's The Dark Tower writes about these entities working with the men in black in another dimension. In that story they're called the Taheen. So is it a demon shapeshifter? Are there actual Catman entities from another dimension that slip into our reality from time to time? Is it a genetically created hybrid monster from some government program? Perhaps aliens created this hybrid as a vessel that humans can possess like an avatar to walk around our realm. Maybe it's like the werewolf phenomena but a werepanther. I have no idea, but the possibilities are endless. H. Jones.
Upright tiger man encountered in Queensland. I've also encountered a Catman humanoid being in the woods of northern Queensland, Australia. I was working at a security detention center in a place called Weeper up there. It's absolutely vast land there with woods stretching for miles and miles. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning when the encounter occurred. There were 4 security posts around the fence line which we had to man and make sure the detainees didn't escape. I was stationed at Zulu 3 post, which was situated behind the detention center, where those 7 Lebanese detainees escaped 3 months before I started working there. It was 3 a.m. and I was sitting at my post watching a kookaburra bird swoop down from the top of the tall fence to the grass collecting bugs, lizards, etc. when I heard a crash in the woods behind my post. This caused all the occupying kookaburra birds to wake up and call. There were thousands of them up there in the northern Queensland. I quickly got up and ran to see what the commotion was all about. Is when I saw what the birds were hacking at. It was a cat humanoid being standing about 2 meters behind my post. It was making its way through the trees until it saw me standing there watching it. It stopped and put both its hands up, which looked like long claws. It stood about 8 to 9 feet tall. I was trying to see what it looked like through the darkness, but all I could see was feature-wise was the shape of a cat's face. Like a tiger. Honestly, it looked ferocious, and it was built like it was made to do serious damage. Standing on 2 feet. It then walked backwards into the woods and vanished into the darkness of the woods. I was so glad I had a 40-feet fence between me and that monstrosity. For the remainder of my time working there, I kept my back faced towards the detention center and my front faced towards the woods. This encounter I'll definitely take to my grave. Mike T.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.